All right. Okay, Derek, thank you for being here. Welcome to our Wednesday bonus cash flow empire call. So thank you for being here, man. So let's go really quick, Derek. If you want to share about who you are and how do you get involved in this business?
Sure. So my name's Derek. I do work with Quest Trust Company. I also work on a government relations team. So pretty much what this means for everyone out there is I'm a big nerd. All right. My job is I read tax code and I research court cases that involve self-directed IRAs and then review bills that are about to pass on retirement accounts. So I'm a big dork. I really am. I get the pleasure to speak at Congress on a quarterly basis. And then we do monthly meetings at that level as well. So I actually didn't start off in this industry. I started off in the military. And then when I was in the military, I really just went there just to get through college. You know, I wanted something to pay for my bills. And I thought when I got out, I'd continue working with the government. And so I applied with the FBI and started working that way. And that was miserable. But I was fortunate enough that my dad was actually a big real estate investor and he was trying to push me to do it and teach me how to do it. And then Quest, I'm also fortunate that Quest teaches all of our employees how to be real estate investors. And I use it through not only my personal investments, I own rentals, I own notes and oil and gas investments, but then I use my retirement account for the same thing. And that's what I'm here to talk to you guys today about. So that's really it. But
Awesome. Perfect. No, thank you, man. Thank you for being here. So Derek, you say that you're involved with Quest Trust Company, right? So that's the company that you're involved. And how many years have you worked for this company?
So about 6.5, 7 years now, I've been with Quest. You know, I'm one of the actual officers of the company. So that was actually really unique that now that I report directly to the vice president or the CEO. So
that is amazing. And how many times people come to you and they say, oh, I didn't know that actually I can use my 401k to invest in real estate?
Do you mean how many times today or how many times since I've been there? Because I hear that every single day, and that's not an exaggeration. And I think you guys will see that as we start to go through this, because so many people out there, they don't realize what you can actually do with a retirement account. You know, and we call it a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k, but there is so much more that you can do that people just don't realize. And so I hope after the end of this presentation, whether you choose to work with Quest or not, everything we teach you and talk to you today, you can take to any retirement custodian out there. So
there we go. Let's go, Jimmy.
Well, we're excited to hear about your presentation, Derek. I mean,
yeah. Do you want me just to get started and I can just start to go through everything? And
let's go.
All right, man. Well, everyone, you have to remember, I'm going to be talking about taxes, retirement accounts. Like, oh my God, it's going to be boring. So if you start to fall asleep, tell me, A. B, ask me questions on the spot. I'll answer them. If I don't, I actually have a moderator on here right now that will also answer the questions as I'm going if I happen to miss it. Use the chat box. I'm going to be answering your questions as we go along. All right. I did kind of create this PowerPoint a little bit on the fly. And so I called it the self-directed IRAs for multifamily purposes. You know, I'm sure you guys always see these things every time someone gives a presentation, you got your disclaimer. So everything I talk today is for educational purposes. But once again, you can take this to any custodian out there. I do work with Quest, so therefore I'm biased. I think Quest is the best. I really do. But you can take all this information. I just want you to realize you can use it to your knowledge and just use it as another one of those tools in your tool belt to help build proper wealth. So we're going to talk about how the self-directed IRAs work, really just the basics, why it's important to you as an investor. We're going to tackle real life issues on these self-directed IRAs. And finally, how can you get started utilizing one? Now, remember, I work and I review tax code. And so because of this, and because I've had the pleasure of speaking at the Congress level, I got to start to see how the IRS views everything. And the IRS actually puts all of us into two categories. The first category is a taxable category, right? The second one then is what? Non-taxable. Makes sense, right? So we can break everything down into these two categories. So what is a taxable individual or a taxable entity, a taxable category? You, first off, right? You as the individual, right? Meaning anything you establish. So if you work a job, right, you get your W-2 income, you have to pay your taxes. But if you set up an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, a trust, all of these are also taxable entities. Why? Because you created it. So they could be in different tax brackets or tax, categories, but ultimately they're all taxable. But we have non-taxable entities that we can utilize as well. So as a non-taxable entity, when I say this, what do you think of? Churches, charities, nonprofit organizations, which is all correct. But believe it or not, a self-directed IRA, a solo 401k, and a QRP plan all fall into the same category. Each one of these file the same tax return a church would. Probably never realized that or thought about it that way. But you can also do all the same investments you currently do using a self-directed IRA. I don't care what it is. Your cryptocurrency, your stocks, your mutual funds, your real estate properties, your multifamily can all be done on this non-taxable side, meaning you get to keep more profit. So let's start off, let's define what is a self-directed IRA, right? So, oh, good job. I like it. If anyone needs the slides, I'll gladly email them out. I saw some people taking pictures of them already. So good job. But what is a self-directed IRA? If we're in person and I ask someone this question, in the 6 to 7 years I've been doing this, no one has ever answered this right. You know why? Because they're fake. There is no such thing as a self-directed IRA. What? Then why do people say that? It's because this is actually a marketing term, right? If you actually read the IRS revenue code or an IRS publication or review any court cases, no one at those levels will ever talk about self-directed IRAs. It's just an IRA. So why do we call it that? If I have an IRA at Fidelity, Fidelity will only let me invest in stocks, bonds, CDs, mutual funds. But if I take that same account and I move it over to a company like Quest, we will only let you invest in real estate. Now we call it self-directed because I don't have real estate for you to buy. You got to go find your investment. So which one's better or worse? The Fidelity with the stocks or Quest with the real estate? Honestly, neither. If you think about it just for a minute, it's what do you want to invest in? If you want to buy Apple stock, you got to go over here. And if you want to buy property, you have to come here. So don't think that one is better than the other, it's just different. But notice for the rest of this conversation, instead of using the term IRA, I'm just going to call it a retirement account because that's ultimately what we're using and ultimately what we're kind of looking at. So let's see, hold on. Any questions? I saw a couple things pop up. Boop, boop. I don't think so. So I'm going to keep going. So what are the benefits of using a self-directed IRA, guys? First thing is I always call it diversification. I want someone right now to think about their 401k they currently have. You might feel that 401k is diversified. Why? Because you have it all in large caps, those Fortune 500 stocks, those mutual funds, and maybe an annuity. But all of those are on the public side. So I say, let's take a portion of those funds and move it to the private side. What is the private side? Typically real estate, oil and gas, small business. Don't think that one is better than the other. Once again, it's just different. So to have proper diversification, we got to take some of those funds and move it over to the other sector. The biggest reason, though, is the tax savings. You as an investor, you as an individual, if you did a fix and flip and you made $10,000, do you really get to keep the 10 grand? No. As a matter of fact, that $10,000, you probably only get to keep 7 or 8. You have to pay $2,000, $3,000, sometimes $4,000 in taxes. This could be income tax, capital gains tax, and earning tax. But you could do the exact same fix and flip inside your IRA and have all of it be tax-free. That $10,000 that we just mentioned, not taxable. So this is the biggest advantage. It allows you to capitalize on more of the profit that you should be making and more profit into your own personal pocket. One of the cheesy things I like to say, though, is you get to really invest in what you know best. All you guys are on here to learn about real estate. But if you think right now about your retirement account, it's probably not holding any real estate, but you're on a real estate class. You're here to learn how to be a real estate investor. Right? We just talked about a great event coming up in Orlando where you're going to learn how to become a better real estate investor. Then why is it that most of your retirement funds are sitting in public markets? Usually it's because you didn't realize this was an option. Now, you have all sorts of different types of accounts that can be self-directed. These are probably the most popular ones you see here on the screen, right? We start with the personal plans, a traditional and Roth IRA. This is because you probably already have at least one of these and don't realize it. Your current 401k or a 403b, a pension plan, a TSP, all of those turn into a traditional IRA eventually. But we also have other plans such as employer plans and specialty plans, the SEPs, the simples, the 401ks, a health savings account, a covered L account. All of these can truly be self-directed. So all you got to do is choose whichever plan you'd like and find one that meets your needs. What's nice is Quest actually offers consultations to help you figure out which one of these accounts is best for you, whether it's a solo 401k or a traditional IRA or maybe a Roth. Now, obviously, each one of these accounts I just mentioned, I told you you can use for real estate investment, avoid all the taxes. So if you can avoid all the taxes on any investment, the IRS puts big restrictions on there. So what are those restrictions? They're people restrictions, transaction restrictions, and ultimately investment restrictions. Now, for everyone out there, you don't care about the transaction or investment restrictions, really. It's the people restrictions that get real estate investors. And the IRS says there's certain people that are disqualified from doing business with your IRA. So who do you think is that first disqualified person? You. Believe it or not, you can't take your IRA and buy yourself a house, right? That's not an investment, that's a homestead. You can't take your IRA and lend yourself money to go do a deal. But that's okay, it's not actually what you're trying to do. You just want to use the IRA to buy the property. So don't confuse this. And we're going to walk through some examples in just a little bit. But it's also not just you that is what we call disqualified. It's this unique little list. Now, don't be scared by this list. It is not your job to memorize it. That is my job. So I break it down real easily. I say it comes down to your IRA can't buy something for you, your spouse, your parents, or your kids. That's it. All those extra boxes and stuff you see on there, it's because like, oh, well, what if I got an idea? I'll set up an LLC. Guys, the IRS is not that dumb. You can't use your IRA and lend money to your kids so they can start a business. You can't use your money in your IRA to buy a house for your parents and let them go live in it because you don't want them living with you. It doesn't work that way. So, hold on. I saw a couple of questions pop up. Let's see. Yep, you cannot take your IRA to buy a house and lend yourself money to buy a property. Perfect. Yep, man, you're on point. So ultimately, don't let this list scare you. Just know that it exists. And what's really scary about it, though, is you cannot buy, sell, trade, loan, extend services between you, spouse, parents, kids. And that includes directly. But what gets people is the indirect way. Because people try to be sneaky. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to set up a Delaware statutory trust to hide it. Guys, that doesn't hide it like you think it does. All right. And if the IRS catches you, what's scary is they'll take away your entire retirement account. You could lose it all. So I always tell people, don't bend or break these rules. These are what actually get you in trouble. So now that I've scared the pants off you, let's figure out what it is you actually can invest in, Because honestly, just about anything. You can buy single family homes, you can do foreclosures, you can do commercial properties and LLCs and secured notes and everything else, right? So you can really use your self-directed IRA for just about anything. Let's then figure out how do we use the IRA properly? And this is where actually issues come into play. It's because people don't know how to properly utilize a self-directed account. So I actually determined that it breaks down to two different ways. The first one is what I like to call direct ownership by the IRA. The other one is ownership through an additional entity. A lot of people refer to this as checkbook control. So we're going to break down both of these, figure out how we can use it, and then we're going to tackle how can we use it for investments. So first off, we have to set you up a self-directed account. It'll look something like this. Your IRA will be called Quest Trust Company for the benefit of your name IRA 12345, right? Your IRA literally will be considered its own entity. It has its own name, its own address, its own tax ID number. This even has its own level of asset protection. So notice you're no longer going to be going out and doing the investment. It's your IRA, right? It's just on paper. So you go, you found a house, you found a note, whatever it is you want to do, your IRA is just going to send money in exchange for the title of the asset. Nothing special. But since you didn't do the investment, the IRA did, guess who gets the profit? The IRA. It is that simple. So the IRA is the one that buys the house, the IRA receives the profit. The IRA is the one that did the fix and flip, the IRA receives the profit. And remember, these IRAs are considered to be tax exempt. So in doing this investment, you avoid all capital gains tax. You avoid earnings tax. You don't have to pay income tax on any of the profit in this type of transaction. So let's see what's going on behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, I like to say your custodian stays involved, right? This means a very clean way to do a transaction. If you go through and you're buying an investment or something like that, this is super clean because someone has to hold your hand. They physically have to hold your hand through this type of investment. But this does mean it's going to take 24 to 48 hours to fund any deal once they have all the paperwork. The custodian, Quest, we get to charge you a fee. We charge you a fee for every new investment that you do. Charge you 125 bucks, right? So therefore, you got to make sure the investments make sense. I always tell people if $125 is what makes or breaks your investment deal, it's probably not a good investment. So I like to give one other example of an investment, and it's because many of you out there will probably have multiple retirement accounts, right? Maybe it's your IRA, your wife's IRA, maybe you have a Roth IRA or a 401k or something like that, right? Well, if we have 3 different retirement accounts, you know, a health savings account, a Roth, and a traditional, I purposely made the numbers equal up to 100 grand to make our numbers easy. And you found a investment you wanted to do. Well, we could bring all these together to, let's say, do a note, lend someone some money. Now, if we went through these motions, how would it look? Well, ultimately, guys, that would be your percentage of ownership. In our example, the Roth owns 20%, the HSA owns 10%, the traditional owns 70%. But this means that profit is split 20, 10, 70. So no big deal. So we can use multiple IRAs in the same investment. So what are some pros and cons? Pros to doing this, I love using the IRA directly because someone holds your hand. Believe it or not, the IRS really likes this method because they're not looking at you, they're looking at your custodian. An average IRA custodian gets audited 5 times a year. That's not an exaggeration. 4 times by and for requests, it's 4 times by the Texas Banking Division and once via the IRS and Department of Labor. So that's why it's very easy because the IRS doesn't look at you, they look at us. Therefore, if you're a beginner, this is probably the best way to go about it. But what are the cons? Well, the cons being there's a new fee. Man, I charge you a fee every time you buy a new property, every time you do a new loan, every time you invest into a new multifamily project, I'm going to charge you 125 bucks. Therefore, there's paperwork you have to do on my side. And lastly, Quest sees everything that you're doing. So take the good with the bad, the pros with the cons. So that's option 1 to go through all these type of assets. After the investment, so we're going to stop here because we're going to switch to checkbook control and change gears just a little bit. I got some questions. After the investment is closed, how does one get across to the profit? Great question, Marcos. We're going to tackle that in just a minute, and I think it will help in the next few slides. So talk about how do you access profit as an individual. So,
Derek, I have a question.
Sure, bring it on.
The type of accounts that you can roll into the IRA. So you're mentioning the HSA, it's also be able to roll in. That was it was new to me. I thought it was 401k, and then the retirement account. So are there any other types of accounts that can be rolled in for self-directed IRA?
Absolutely. And so it could be anything, even stuff for your kids, like a Coverdell education account, an HSA account, right, which is for your health savings, but it's also those individual IRAs, traditional Roth, solo 401ks you already mentioned, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs. You know, if you don't think it can be moved into one of them, then what ultimately means we just change it. If someone's out there and they're like, well, I have a 457 and they say I can't do that, I can change your 457 to a traditional IRA and now you can self-direct it, you know? So really almost any account you have out there can be self-directed in one way, shape, or another. So does that help?
Yes.
Awesome. Let's see. Boom. You're doing a great job taking the pictures. I like that. So notice all this stuff that we just went over is the IRA doing the investment directly. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk then about the checkbook control way. Now, before I dive into this method, people, when you watch this, you're going to see it and you're going to want to jump straight to it. But there's a lot of risk involved. This is the number one method that causes court cases, IRS audits, and people to ultimately lose their retirement account. So don't jump to this method just because the end result looks better, all right, due to typically fees or quick access to the money. But I'm going to stick with the same example. I'm going to pretend for a moment your family has 3 different retirement accounts. Maybe you have a Roth, your spouse has an account, your kids have an account. Well, remember, if you want to buy a property, do a loan, invest in multifamily, something like that, I have to charge you a fee. So is there a way around that fee? Absolutely. What if we created an LLC in the middle or a trust? What if this was the umbrella that's actually going to hold all the cash? Well, in this example, then we can absolutely do this. And your Roth would own 25% of the LLC. Your spouse's Roth, in our example, would own 60%. Your kids' account would own 15%, equaling the 100% ownership of this LLC. Now, normally, if you've ever established one, you'll hear the term, and attorneys use this all the time, and they use it so poorly, but they call you a managing member. Have you guys ever heard that term? Well, I'm the managing member of my LLC. That's actually 2 different roles. You have a member and you have a manager. The member is labeled as an owner of the company, and the manager has to take full direction from the owner, aka the member. So attorneys will shortcut this because they call you the managing member, mainly because you're the one making that control. You're playing 2 different roles. So I bring that up because in our example right here, the IRAs are labeled as the members. So the IRA, since they're the members, they're the owners, they're the operators, but the IRAs aren't real people. So we need a manager in place. And unfortunately, the IRS says you can't be your own manager. That sucks, right? You have to have, remember, that non-disqualified person to be labeled your manager, someone not you, not your spouse, not your parents, and not your kids. Knowing this, who can be the manager then? Every time I give you this list, you heard me say your family. I didn't say your family. As a matter of fact, I was very specific with your list, with that list. You, spouse, parents, kids. Therefore, could we use someone like a sibling? Absolutely. I can use my brother. Sure, that works. A sister. I could use another business partner, not an uncle, a niece, a nephew. You can use just about anyone to be your manager in these cases. But it can't be you, spouse, parents, kids. Now, once this whole thing is established, guess what happens? You can go out and do as many investments as you want, and I no longer have to charge you any fees. Every investment you see right here on the right-hand side of the screen is completely free. Fees are gone. They're non-existent. You have to pay 1 fee a year to keep the LLC active, and that's it. So people love this method because you can do unlimited amount of investments, avoid all the fees, and have quick access to the money, which is why they call it checkbook control. So let's go and look at the pros and cons, and I'll get to some of the questions here. Easy ways to leverage multiple IRAs. Love this because notice you can put multiple retirement accounts into the same LLC. It's very hidden, right? Notice Quest, we don't see anything that the LLC is doing, right? You did all those investments and we didn't have any say. We didn't look at them, nothing. Therefore, it's really, really cheap on fees. But what are the cons? Well, that non-disqualified person. There's always one person in this entire crowd that go, well, I don't know anybody that can be that. Make some friends, you know? It's not the IRS's favorite method. Therefore, it's a dangerous responsibility. Why is it not the IRS's favorite method? Because they know you have zero oversight. They know that. Could you? I'm not saying you would, because we all obey the rules 100%. But could you just write yourself a check and go buy groceries? Absolutely, you could. And nothing prevents you from doing that. So because of that, it's a dangerous responsibility. If you do that, it's actually called tax evasion. So you got to be very, very careful. Lastly, you must set up the entity yourself, AKA your attorney. Don't let a custodian do it for you, because we're going to set it up based off our needs, not yours. So ultimately, there's some other issues. And it's funny, I always like to throw this slide in there, because the first question someone asked, and then we're going to dive into all the questions, is, can I be my own trustee or manager of my IRA-owned LLC? No! I actually just spent 10 minutes telling you guys you can't do it, and it's always the first question that pops up. So I always like to just reiterate that, because I think it's hilarious. Now, for the second half, this was the first half of the class. We're going to switch gears and talk about using the IRA for multifamily and using it on things and tackling other more complicated questions. So everything I just went over is, I would label as a real basic level class. So before we do that, is there any specific questions someone wants to unmute themselves and ask, or I'm going to just scroll through some of these things. I see some pictures. 401k can be converted if it is no longer active, correct? That is correct. So Vanessa asks, can my 401k be converted to a self-directed IRA if it is no longer tied to that employer, if I've already left? Yes, it can. As a matter of fact, that's usually where the majority of people's funds will come from. So great question, Vanessa. Thanks once again for doing this Tuesday. Boop, 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 boop. I'm just scrolling through. How about IULs? Please respond. IULs. What do you mean by IULs? Who is that said that?
And that was Luis.
Yeah, Luis, what do you mean by IULs?
Go ahead, Luis. Are you there, Luis?
Index universal insurance.
Great question. So can I use
asking,
it? Yeah.
He's asking if that's tax-free as the same or not.
It is not, unfortunately. So we cannot use a retirement account to ever invest into any type of insurance, right? Not really sure why, but the IRS says we can't use it to our retirement accounts to invest in insurance, anything related there. We can't use it to invest in alcohol or anything that's considered an antique or priceless, like something that's really, really hard to value. So good question. That's probably actually why I didn't know that. I was like, what the hell is that? Look at that. Love it. Is there an amount needed to start or transfer a self-directed IRA? Not at all. As a matter of fact, Quest, you can set one up with a zero balance. We don't have account minimums because we're fee-based custodians. That being said, you typically won't set one up unless you're looking or already planning on doing an investment, right? There's no reason just to set one up and do nothing with it and make a contribution of $1,000. You're not going to get a deal done for that. Sorry, it's going to suck, you know? But if you're rolling over a 401k, transferring one of those existing IRAs or something like that, then absolutely. If you just want to start a retirement account, dude, Fidelity can do it for free with no fees. You can't invest in real estate, but it's a good thing to start to save money if that's just what you're trying to do. So, but like I still tell people that, and they set one up with me even though we charge fees. And I'm like, all right, good question. Any other questions before we switch gears? Because now we're going to get to a little bit more complicated topics.
I have another question, Derek.
Sure.
Is there any way that you can transfer a Canadian retirement account to the US self-directed IRA?
99% of the time, I'm going to say no. Okay. There's certain times you can, and this depends on if the company is actually US based, right? But they had you working in Canada or you were stationed in Canada or something like that. And this holds true even if you're overseas somewhere else. When you do this, you end up with a retirement plan that has a difference between, and when they move it over, you go from the pound to the dollar, and they'll have a configuration rate. But once again, the company actually has to be based out of the US. So if the company's based in Canada, Europe, you know, it doesn't matter anywhere, and that holds true no matter where you are in the world, same answer. So good question.
Awesome. Great presentation, Derek. By the way, I just listen to these guys because, you know, we have this question a lot of times, Derek, like, okay, I don't have money and I want to invest in real estate and everything, but the reality is like they didn't know that they can use this vehicle also, and they can start working that way towards financial freedom. So I appreciate you bringing this up tonight, man. I'm excited. This is amazing.
Absolutely. And that's the key, guys. Think of yourself as individuals. Do you have more money in your current checking account or more money in that 401k or IRA that you've been saving for 5, 10, 15, 20 years at the employer, right? Most of us have more money over in that employer plan. Let's use that for real estate. Marcos, I almost forgot about your question earlier. How do you access it personally? So I just saw you down there. So before I share my screen again, guess what? You get to access it personally when you're old. That's it. But that's okay. This is why the retirement account is perfect for multifamily. If you're a multifamily investor, when do we get paid out? Down the road. Typically, most sure, you might get some small dividends along the way, but that's not what you're living off of. You invest $100,000 in a multifamily deal, and 5 years later, it doubles the $200,000. You had to wait 5 years for that payoff to come in. So why would you drain a personal bank account when you can instead use the money that you've already had set aside, looking, down the road anyways? So I always argue the 401k or an IRA is better for those situations. So that's how you access it, Marcos. You get old. All right, guys. So we're going to keep going. We're going to switch gears. This is going to be the more complicated section of everything. So I like to always talk about this. I say there can be some additional problems with an IRA investment. And believe it or not, I've been telling you this whole time, an IRA investment isn't supposed to be taxable, but there's times it can be, right? And when an IRA investment becomes taxable, we call it unrelated business income. Now, this happens when your IRA decides to physically run its own business. Now, what do I mean by that? Can you imagine, just for a minute, you could open up a Starbucks using your IRA and you could sell coffee to everyone out there and not have to pay taxes on the income. Well, if you did this, you'd have a way unfair advantage. So the IRS says, hey, that's not what the IRA is designed for. In addition, you can't use it for, and they call it personal property. Now, when I say personal property, I always get this from a cop about once a year who says, hey, I want to use my IRA. I'm going to buy cars at the police auctions and then bring them to the mechanic, and then the mechanic should fix them up and sell them for a profit. You don't want to do that, guys. You can do it, but you get taxed when you do this. But there's one other reason, one other way you get taxed in an IRA, and it's called unrelated debt finance income tax, or UDFI. This happens when your IRA borrows money directly or indirectly to complete an investment. So I give the quick example. I say, I want to do a fix and flip. I put $30,000 down. I borrow $70,000 from the bank to buy the house and get the property done. Well, this means that my IRA put $30,000 down. My IRA borrowed $70,000. All this is fine, but the IRS will tax 70% of my profit. Why? Because 70% of it was made from borrowed money. Now, why do I bring this up? If you're a multifamily investor, most multifamily investors, right? Guess what? They end up borrowing money from the bank. If they have a $10 million project, they raise $3 million and borrow $7 million to get the job finished. Indirectly, your IRA borrows money. So how can I still get away and have the investment be tax-free? Well, there's a couple different things. First off, depreciation. If you do a multifamily investment, what's nice is at the end of the year, your syndicator, the guy that raised the capital, gives you a K1. And if we look in box 3, that K1 shows a big negative value. Those the IRA gets to take as a deduction to offset any of the taxes. It gets to do things like not only claim the depreciation, but also do the cost segregation aspect of it. And this is better in an IRA than for you personally. The reason why the IRA actually saves all of these deductions up until actual profit is made. You, as the investor, usually what ends up happening is you claim these deductions every year, right? You file your taxes, you say, hey, cool, I got the K1, I get to claim these deductions. Year 2, I claim my deductions. Year 3, I claim my deductions. Year 4, you typically break even. Year 5, you get this big profit, and now you have to pay all your taxes. Happens every single time. Whereas the IRA instead didn't claim any deductions because it doesn't owe any taxes. Now it makes the profit. It uses all the depreciation, all the cost segregation all at once, still making the investment tax-free. So don't be scared of this UBIT problem or UDFI problem. Just be aware of it, right? You can invest into certain taxable entities, such as a C corporation. This is very common with hotels. If someone's building a hotel, they'll probably actually do this so you don't have to worry about it, right? I always say loan, don't own, but there's one extra magic bullet, and it's called the solo 401k. If you're out there and you qualify for a solo 401k, which is not the same as the 401k tied to your employer, solo 401ks are 100% exempt from this UDFI aspect in multifamily. So this is a great solution. Now, to qualify, you have to be what I call truly self-employed by the IRS, meaning you have a company, you pay yourself from the company, and at the end of the year, the company needs to show profit. That's it. Now, it's funny because a lot of you guys out there say you're self-employed, but you don't pay yourself. You choose not to pay yourself. So you actually have to start paying yourself to qualify for a 401k, right? So, boop. Overall, guys, that's really it for me. I have my email here on the screen, but I also have a moderator in here. Andrea, if you're on here, can you just put your email in the chat box as well so people can reach out to you or me? I actually have a lot of travel coming up. So during this next 2 to 3 weeks, I will be going to California, to Washington, D.C., and one other place, just because this is the end of the quarter and it's always going to do all our Congress meetings. So very, very boring for me. Overall, that's actually all I have. So I'm going to dive into some questions. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to ask them. See,
Absolutely. And if you guys have a question, make sure that you raise your hand right now. So you know, Derek, thank you for being here, man, for give us your time. That was amazing. It's a lot of things that, you know, we're still learning. So I appreciate that. So you guys, and right now is the time to raise your hand. But you know, actually, okay, that's good. That was quick. Go ahead, Marcus. Awesome, man. Thank you for being here.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Okay, so Derek, I'm gonna go back to my question. The two-part. So once you get the profit, can you reuse that to reinvest?
Absolutely. That's what you should be doing. And so this is why it doesn't, people think that when you're a real estate investor, right, that you invest the money, you make a big profit, and then you go spend it and buy a car. No, 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 no. Usually what happens is you invest the money, you make a big profit, and what do? You invest it all again. So what's nice is when we use the IRA, when we do this, we don't have to pay taxes when we made the big profit. So the goal here is to always be using the retirement account to do these investments and avoid as much taxes as possible. Now, because you're younger, right, we don't do every investment in the IRA. Otherwise, you're not going to make it to being old, you know? Now, the IRS says you can spend the money by once you're 59. So you got to wait till you're 59 to spend the money for personal use. Investment use, fine. Use it all you want.
Yeah, so you can use the initial investment plus the profit and like pretty much double dip, right? Or
yep, that's I like you live. So it's a great way because think about it. If you made, and I always use the example, you made 10 grand. If you did that personally, you actually only made 7 or 8 because the IRS is going to take some. The IRA makes 10 grand. You actually have 10 grand to reinvest.
wait, do you have like a pamphlet or a booklet, or like, so I can share with people who are thinking about investing?
Absolutely.
Or is there like a website?
Sure. So, Andrea, if you want to just give him your direct Calendly link, Marcos, we can either mail you stuff. We mail stuff all the time to people. There's books, folders, flyers, even flash drives that have like my PowerPoint and everything else on there. If anyone else wants that as well, just let us know. You know, we're very open about all those things. So absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Julie, did you have a question? I thought you like rose your hand too or something. Oh, wait, and we got another one too.
Rigo.
Yeah,
It was Rigo. Julie, go ahead.
sorry. Hey, I wrote it in the chat, but I don't think, I don't see it. So I don't know. I was on Facebook and now I'm on this link. So sorry. Hi, everyone. I just have a question. Due to the nature of sort of what's happening in the market today, in regards to LTV values, interest rates, et cetera, my concern as an investor right now on using my IRAs is not having enough depreciation to eradicate the tax required this year. So I'm kind of in a particular situation. I have to eradicate a bunch of income. And so I'm just trying to figure out right now what the best way to do this is with using the IRAs, because I don't like the IRA returns, right? Obviously. And I send all kinds of people to Quest. So I love you guys, but I just have this question personally because I'm not sure, what to do in this scenario.
Sure. Do you have any employees?
I do.
Okay. So do any of them work for you? Let's call it 40 hours a week or more than 20 hours a week.
Sure. All my 4 kids.
Okay. Kids don't count. Nope. Don't care about the kids.
Well, they do. They count if they're over 18. So yes, they do.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
I got this all dialed down. No worries. I got
Right.
employees.
Did-
I got
can
lots
they-
of employees.
Yeah. Do you pay them W-2 or 1099?
I pay them W-2.
Darn, you're making this tough on me.
But they get 1099 distribution, so we can do either.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
if you can keep them as a 1099 instead of a W-2, I
And
think a
just-
good CPA would tell you to set up a solo 401k only for the tax deduction reasons. All right.
So right now we have a custodial Roth IRA.
Yep.
That's getting put into the 6,500, right? Obviously to
Sure.
maximize that tax base. Can I use their Roth IRA if they're over 18 to funnel the
Sure.
investment? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But for the tax deduction reasons, you can contribute $66,000 for you and $66,000 for your husband and take that as a deduction if you would like.
Right. So, but if you're making $100,000 investment, for example, you would be able to eradicate about 75% of that.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
Maybe even more, to be honest.
So what do I need to do then? We have Roth IRAs for ourselves. We need to do a solo 401k then?
Most likely, yes. I think that would probably be a better solution. Okay. It doesn't cost anything extra. If you're thinking the 401k is going to be more expensive than the IRA, usually long-term thinking 401ks are cheaper, But
Right. Are they as transferable though to other investments? And what does that look like?
yes, they absolutely are just as easily to be transferred to any other style investment, and it gives you a lot more control. So, I'd love to maybe just do a consultation.
I think I'll just call you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts. So I just wanted to know if you thought it was still worth, using that component to eradicate the tax through that avenue this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Perfect.
Andrea, can you message Julie and just give her your and just schedule a Zoom link or something like that for us tomorrow or something?
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Awesome. Julie in the house. Thank you, Julie, for being here. We love you having Julie here every time. So that was an amazing question. Thank you, Julie and Derek, for that answer. That was amazing. I'm still, learning from this, and I was just putting a lot of attention. But go ahead, Rico. Welcome, man.
Yeah. Hi, thank you, for everything you're sharing. Well, it was actually my wife that had the questions. I'll let her ask.
Yeah. Well, basically, if you take out the money beforehand, what percentage would you be taxed?
So you get two things, okay? Is first off, we have to determine what type of retirement account are you taking it out of. So I'm just going to assume it's a tax deferred one like a traditional IRA, okay? But the money you pull out is added to you as income. So whatever tax bracket that puts you in, that's how much you owe. But they tack on a 10% penalty on top of it. So if you pulled out 10 grand, add 10 grand to you as income. So if you're in a 20% bracket, you owe 2,000 plus another $1,000 bucks.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, if it's a Roth IRA, like Julie was mentioning that for her kids, believe it or not, you can touch a lot more of those funds tax and penalty free. Most of the time, you can actually take a distribution completely tax-free if it's just the contributions that you put in there. So that's why it really does depend on what type of retirement account you is. Before you ever pull money out of it for personal use, talk with myself, Andrea, any one of the other IRA specialists, because we can let you know on it better. Hey, what are you using it for? There might be a rule you can pull it out. Like, people don't realize this. You guys know you can pull out 10 grand tax-free to buy your first home. You know what a first home is? You haven't bought a home in 2 years. That's what the IRS says. You can pull it out to pay for schooling, like college. You can pull it out for medical expenses or adoption, and there's a lot of things in there. So before you pull money out, ask one of us and we'll walk you through, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Awesome, Derek. So basically, what are the requirements? You know, so when it's not possible to move the money from a 401k to self-directed?
So
Help me with that.
if it's an active 401k, right, something that's tied to a current employer, you can't move it most of the time. Most of the time, that employer is going to hold on to it. But the funds you can move are old employer plans, right? Other IRAs, other, HSA, health savings accounts, or Coverdell accounts. Like, those are the types of things that you can always move over to a self-directed fashion and have more access to.
Awesome. If it's still an active employer, can you still work something out, or is already a no?
Well, there's no law that says you can't move it. So it's actually 100% up to the employer, okay? But the reason why, and I tell people this, is your employer, they usually, let's say, match you dollar for dollar into like a 401k, right? You put a buck in, they put a buck in. Well, they don't give you $1 because they like you. They gave you $1 because they took a tax deduction of it. Well, if you move it, guess what happens? They lose that deduction. So they normally will not allow you to move it until either A, you had separation of service, quit, lost your job, got fired, whatever you want to call it, or B, you can move it once you hit the appropriate age, 59 or older. So.
That was really good. That was a good answer. Okay, so what are the requirements basically in paperwork? Let's say if I'm ready to invest in a fix and flip or a multifamily. So what are the requirements? What do I need to bring to you in terms of start working out?
Oh, it's honestly not. To fill out an application for us to set you up a self-directed IRA, it's so basic. It's name, social, date of birth, who inherits the account when you pass away, and typically a signature. And that's it. So like, there's nothing special to get one of these accounts established. We always like to make sure that you know what you're investing in first. So we'll probably ask you questions like, what are you investing? Do you have an investment lined up? Where are your money comes? So we can give you like a realistic expectation. So we do our best to do that. And we try to have a real consultation with you. In addition, we try to also give you an IRA specialist that is yours. Someone that is your quarterback. Someone you can call, a non-automated line, and make sure you get any questions you need to that you can build real rapport with. They don't get commissions. So that's what's nice too. So they're just there to answer your questions.
And what are the fees to set up an account like that, Derek?
It's $100. Straight, easy, quick, straight to the point. If you say, hey, a friend referred me, we'll let you set up an account for $50. So whether a friend referred you or not, you probably just want to lie about it. Hint, hint, hint.
Awesome. That was an amazing question.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I think we have like just a couple more minutes. So you guys have any questions right here? After that, we will go to the breakout rooms. So actually, Derek, we're doing like a little breakout rooms for, I don't know, you guys, if you have another, like a 5-10 minutes, we will go there. Maybe people have some personal questions for you. You have a little bit more of time, but yeah, sure. This is actually what we do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. This is exciting. Just listen to this, guys. So this is it was an amazing call, especially because a lot of people and I read the last time an article that there are like billions, trillions of dollars just sitting in 401k accounts, and people don't know that actually they can leverage that and use it to invest in different vehicles, right? So yeah, I mean, how do you go there really quick when people ask you like, what is your advice? You can give an advice for somebody that like it just made you like just straight like that.
Well, my best advice I'd give anyone, and this sounds really funny, is get started. I see more people lose out on investments because they're waiting for the next home run. They're waiting for this next big thing, and they have this analysis paralysis aspect, and they never make a decision. you know, and they sit there and they don't ever take that leap of faith. And you know what? That first jump is super scary. It really is. After that, though, it is so much easier to move forward. So that'd be the first thing. Second is, if you're going to do any investments, make sure you know who you're investing in. Make sure you can build real rapport with them. Make sure you can have due diligence. And it's funny, one of the best ways to do diligence nowadays is actually social media, right? If you screw up an investment, hop on social media. Trust me, someone's complaining about it, you know? So there's a lot of other ways to do due diligence. I teach a whole due diligence class, but.
All right, that was amazing. Okay, guys, so we'll have some time right now to go to the breakout rooms. So you guys stay there. That's gonna be really good, amazing for keep networking, keep connecting, and then whoever get the the locker room where Derreck is gonna be, you guys can ask more personal questions if you guys are gonna be there. But thank you so much, Derreck, for being here, man. So that was a bonus call that we have this Wednesday. So I appreciate you guys being here. So, and I'll see you guys next week.